The lock gave a final, echoing snap as I turned the key, the metallic click slicing through the thick tension pressing against my chest. Behind me, Eleanor's laughter floated through the hallway, a light, careless sound that grated against the storm raging inside me. It wasn't meant to be cruel, perhaps, but in that moment, it felt like mockery, the kind that cuts deep, especially when it's unearned. The last 6 months had been an agonizing unraveling, slow, deliberate, and relentless. Her late nights at work that never quite added up, the hushed phone calls taken in rooms with closed doors, the subtle distance that settled between us like fog. I watched it all unfold while trying to convince myself it was nothing. But denial is a fragile shield, and my heart had already splintered into 1,000 jagged fragments, each one a scar carved by the truth I'd tried too long to ignore. The moment she stepped through the door, the laughter caught in her throat and vanished like smoke. She froze, 1 foot barely inside, her posture stiffening as her eyes locked onto the scene in front of her. Her expression shifted in an instant, mischief and warmth replaced by shock, her face draining of color. One trembling hand rose instinctively to her lips as she gasped, the sound sharp and small. It was unfolding exactly how I had envisioned for weeks, every detail, from the way her body recoiled from the sight, to the dawning horror in her eyes when she realized what I had done, what I knew, what she could no longer deny. Behind me, on the bed, I had arranged everything, not just text messages and screenshots, though those were there too, printed and laid out in stark black and white, but also real, physical remnants of her betrayal. Her velvet scarf, the one she'd claimed had been lost during a business trip, recovered from the glove box of Daniel's car. A faded, crumpled receipt for a weekend getaway at a secluded inn. She had told me she was visiting her sick mother that weekend. And then, the centerpiece, a large photograph of the two of them outside a downtown bar. Their bodies leaned into one another with unmistakable familiarity. The twilight softened their faces, but the intimacy between them was undeniable. Eleanor stumbled backward, the color in her face now almost entirely gone. Her lips parted as she whispered my name, her voice fragile. "Michael, I can explain." My voice came out steady, too steady, the kind of calm that hides sharp edges. "Explain what, exactly?" I asked, my eyes fixed on hers. "How you kissed me goodbye every morning while preparing your next lie. How you dismantled our marriage one secret at a time, while I stayed blind out of love." She stood frozen, mouth opening then closing without sound, her composure unraveling. She looked like a wounded animal, panicked, cornered, gasping for a way out. Her eyes darted from the evidence to me, then back again. This was the moment I had imagined on countless sleepless nights. The confrontation, the exposure, the reckoning. I took a step forward, my words landing like stones. "Where is he, Eleanor?" My tone was cracking, the calm starting to fray at the edges. "Where's Daniel?" Her voice barely escaped her lips. He's at work." I let out a bitter laugh, cold, humorless. "Work? That's funny, because I just got off the phone with his wife." I let that settle, the silence stretching like a blade. "He called in sick today." And then I saw it, the flicker in her expression, the realization. She hadn't known, not really, not that Daniel was married. That detail hadn't been part of her fantasy. I hadn't planned on involving anyone else, but when I found out Daniel had a wife, it felt almost poetic. Misery, as they say, loves company. Without another word, I pulled out my phone and dialed. When Daniel picked up, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rage. "You need to come over," I said, my tone like ice. "There's something here you need to see." The next hour was chaos. Daniel arrived first. His usual smugness fell away the instant he stepped inside. He scanned the room, the incriminating evidence. Eleanor's crumpled form on the floor, and said nothing, just stood there, pale and speechless. Then came his wife. Her eyes scanned the same scene, but where his was silent guilt, hers was fire. She looked at Eleanor with raw fury, and the shouting began. Accusations flew, sharp and brutal. Blame tossed like grenades. There were tears, sobs, and venom. Their carefully constructed illusion shattered before all of us. That it was a spectacle, ugly, loud, and necessary. They needed to see the damage they had wrought, needed to stand among the ruins and realize the cost. Eventually, silence returned. Heavy, exhausted. Eleanor looked up at me through swollen eyes. Her voice barely more than a whisper. Michael, please. But that version of me, the man who once loved her without question, was already gone. Drained away by 1,000 betrayals. Drowned by every lie. It's over, Eleanor, I said. My voice left no room for doubt. I want you out. The divorce was long, cold, and brutal. We sat through endless meetings in sterile rooms, surrounded by lawyers and paperwork. She tried to spin her story, tried to cast herself as the wounded party. But the truth was a wall too tall to climb. She couldn't lie her way around it anymore. Daniel's marriage fell apart. Just as violently, the wreckage of their choices lay at their feet, ugly and irreparable. I took no satisfaction in their suffering. There was no triumph, no relief, just a quiet, enduring emptiness. Their pain didn't restore what they had taken from me. Time passed. Slow and uncertain, I sold the house, the one where we had once laughed and dreamed. I moved to a new city, a clean slate. The pain softened, not gone, but dull around the edges. I learned to live with the echo of what was lost, without letting it consume me. I found peace in solitude, learned to breathe again without bitterness. Years later, in a small cafe tucked away from the busy streets, I sat by the window reading, the rain tapping gently on the glass. A laugh floated through the room, soft, strangely familiar. I looked up. Eleanor, older now, more tired. Time had marked her face with lines that hadn't been there before. Her smile, once effortless, seemed weighed down by things unsaid. Our eyes met, and just like that, we were back in that bedroom. The confrontation, the collapse, the end. She looked away. I closed my book. A small, quiet smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. There was no anger, no ache, only calm. I had survived. I had rebuilt. And in the end, that was my quiet, enduring victory. I stood, stepped into the street, and left her behind. Just like the past,